We've already looked at the best and the worst case scenario for the Rangers this winter, but what would the most realistic case scenario look for the Rangers this offseason? We're talking about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the middle of the road, most realistic case scenario for the Rangers this offseason, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, we've gone through the best, we've gone through the worst. Now let's go through the most realistic, keeping those expectations middle of the road. I'm recording this the day before it comes out, 2 days before Thanksgiving. Really not that much has happened this winter, definitely not for the Rangers. But let's look at the big picture. We'll start there, because what do the Rangers need to even do this winter? Well, they've got 3 basic things that they need to fix or supplement, or just basically things that they need to address this offseason. Number 1, shore up the rotation with some depth and some top-end talent. There's a couple of really, really good pitchers in this rotation. There's a decent depth. If Jack Leiter is your number 7 starter, that's about where you would want him. Dane Dunning is coming back on that lower deal. We talked about that on Monday's show about why that's important, why having Dane Dunning here is actually matters a lot to the Rangers, despite coming off of a career worst season. But the Rangers need just a little bit more in the top end talent. I mean, right now, if the Rangers headed into the postseason with this exact roster as constructed, everybody healthy, you have your game 1 starter, Jacob deGrom. Game 2 starter is Kumar Rocker or Tyler Mahle, which is fine. And then whichever one of those is not your game 2 is your game 3 starter. Game 4, you're looking at John Gray or Cody Bradford, who are fine, not ideal options for that game 4 starter. But again, if you're getting to that point and everybody's healthy, you're not feeling too bad. But these are starting pitchers. They're not always healthy. So shore up with some depth and some top end talent. If you could do those, probably just 1 starting pitcher. This is going to be the most expensive single player that the Rangers get, unless they get Roki Sasaki, in which case will not be the most expensive player that they get. Number 2, work a miracle on the bullpen. This bullpen needs a large overhaul. I mean, the top 3 leverage options are free agents in Kirby Yates, David Robertson, Jose Leclerc. Josh Sborz just got surgery on his shoulder this past weekend. He's going to miss the first 2 to 3 months of the season. So the one high leverage relief guy that I felt good about in this pen that's already on the roster is going to be down for at least 2, if not 3 months to start the season. So there's a lot of work to be done overhauling this bullpen. Now, is it all going to be done through free agency or trades? No, some of it will be internal. I'm assuming Mark Church will hopefully be healthy this season and contribute at the big league level. There's plenty of other arms in this farm system that I could jump up and be impact bullpen arms right now. But there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of options out there, both through free agency, through internal candidates, and through trades where the Rangers could address that bullpen, but a lot's going to have to be addressed. And then the third, not quite as major, not quite as pressing as these other 2 things, is add a bat. The Rangers should have added, I think, 1 more bat last offseason. Just a lot of hope banked on Leody Taveras repeating exactly what he did. A lot of guys repeating career years. A lot of hope pinned on Evan Carter staying healthy and being maybe not quite as amazing as he was in September and October of 2023, but at least a average to above average big league everyday player. And Carter was not only bad, but also hurt for the vast majority of the season. Wyatt Langford, there was a lot of hope pinned on him to be absolutely extraordinary, which he was in September and was pretty darn good in June and had a bunch of moments of magic. And I think he'll be a lot better in 2025, but wasn't quite there. And basically everybody else in this offense took big steps backward. I think they'll progress a little bit next year, but banking on all of them to get back to around at least even the average level of themselves to closer to 2023 career form for some of them. I don't think that's, something that is likely. And so adding one more bat, particularly a guy who destroys left-handed pitching, the Rangers have two guys here on the roster that annihilate lefties, Langford and Josh Young. Young missed quite a bit of time last year. Another reason why this offense took a step back. But there's a lot of lefties who don't exactly annihilate lefties. Seager had in the past. He did in 2023. That was one of the things that he really did not do well in 2024. And once he got healthy, he got back to more of the best version of himself. But still, all season long, Seager struggled with lefties. Lowe was not great against lefties this year. Evan Carter has really never hit lefties. He hasn't really had the chance to. But adding an outfield bat that can annihilate lefties, just one more guy in there, I think that would be ideal. So let's start with the most realistic scenario. Starting off with the starting pitching, I don't think it's realistic to assume the Rangers can get Roki Sasaki. Will get Roki Sasaki. It's realistic to assume that they can, but I think that the Dodgers machine of winning, and now especially since they're coming off a championship and they have all this success and all this international bonus pool money, I feel like just hoping it feels like the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes where it's like, well, he's probably going to Dodgers, and then look, he goes to the Dodgers, and that's what it is. Ideally, that would be what happens, is that Roki Sasaki comes here. But looking at realistically, I think Eovaldi is probably going to be the Rangers' second option for that. Obviously, Sasaki is the most financially beneficial. I think he's got the highest upside of literally any pitcher on this market. Obviously fits in with any team's timeline. If you're wanting to contend the next 6 years, Roki Sasaki fits that timeline, and the Rangers definitely want to do that. But adding Eovaldi gives you the guy who you feel good about in game 1 or game 2 of a playoff series. He gives you a little bit more of that durability. He gave the Rangers 29 starts last year and over 170 innings, nearly 150 innings in the year before that, and obviously an absolute monster in the postseason who you definitely want in your rotation. And I think somewhere around, maybe take 3 years, $60 million plus some incentives. So a little bit less than Yusei Kikuchi got. I talked about that on yesterday's show of how Kikuchi's deal impacts Nathan Eovaldi. There are also some projections that have him in the 2-year range, like MLB Trade Rumors has him at 2 years, $44 million. I could see that as a likely scenario. And I said 3 years plus incentive, maybe a player option on that 3rd year. Because if I were Eovaldi, I'd say, hey, look, this Kikuchi guy, I know he's a couple years younger than me, but he had a good 10 start stretch and 5 years of being mediocre to bad before it. I am a 2-time World Series champion. I am a playoff monster. I am an incredible mentor to young pitchers, and I'm really freaking good right now and have been and have shown a longer track record of being good. So I think Eovaldi asking for that 3rd year, even though he's 2 years older, I think that's definitely going to be what he's asking for and what I think someone will give him. And, it's easy to look at this rotation right now and see, oh, DeGrom, Malley, Rocker, Bradford, John Gray, think, okay, that's enough. But when it comes to starting pitching, it kind of feels like that scene in Ocean's 11 where, Brad Pitt and George Clooney are sitting there at the bar, and George Clooney's like, you think we need one more? Do you think we need one more? All right, let's get one more. And that was the Rangers' philosophy heading into before the 2023 season. It seemed like they had enough in their rotation, but then they added one more, and that one more was Nathan Eovaldi. And my goodness, did that make all the difference in the world. Can you imagine where the Rangers would have been in 2023 if they didn't have Nathan Eovaldi? I don't think they make the playoffs. They definitely don't win the World Series unless Jacob deGrom was healthy for the full season, in which case that might change some things. But that wasn't the case. And adding Eovaldi alongside Jacob deGrom, I think, would be massive. And if they don't sign Evo, I would pivot. My next pivot would be towards that Jordan Montgomery deal that I've talked about. I did a crossover episode with Locked On Diamondbacks Miller Thomas talking about just straight up swapping John Gray for Jordan Montgomery, hoping for a bounce back season for Monty, being back on a team who actually likes him and an owner that doesn't berate him, and having a full normal offseason, getting back with Mike Maddox as his pitching coach, Jonah Heim as his catcher, might get him back on track. Wouldn't add all that much money. And again, you have that kind of upside. You have more of that durability, even than you get in Eovaldi. And then if you don't get either of those guys, I think the Rangers might pivot to Tamayuki Sagano, who is an older pitcher from Japan, a full-on free agent. I believe he's 35 years old, projected for a 1-year, $12 million deal. Not really a big strikeout guy, but more of a durability guy. And I think someone who I know the Rangers are at least looking at, but would not be my top target, would not be in my middle of the range target, would probably be a C tier option for the Rangers in terms of what they might do with their starting rotation. But that's not the only kind of pitchers the Rangers need to add. They need to revamp this bullpen by quite a bit. We're going to look at how they might do it right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Tomorrow we got a lot of NFL games on Thanksgiving. Right now, the Cowboys at -3.5 favorites over the Giants. The over-under at 37.5. The over is -110 to hit. The under is also -110 to hit. You want to bet on those Dolphins versus Green Bay Packers. Packers are favored at 3.5 points. Same exact line as Giants Cowboys. And then the Lions, big favorites over the Bears, -10.5 favorites for that early Thanksgiving game. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, the biggest hole on this current Rangers roster is the bullpen. I talked about it earlier in the show. I mean, how many big free agents the Rangers lost? Yates coming off of an absolutely phenomenal all-star season, one of the best seasons of his career. Not the best, but one of the best, and the best he's had in half a decade. Also, David Robertson coming off of a phenomenal season. I don't know if the Rangers can get both of them back, but the Rangers need to do a lot to revamp this pen. Let's start with a Kirby Yates deal. Spotrac had him as 1 year, $6 million, but I went and looked up some other projections, and MLB Trade Rumors thinks he's going to get a lot more than that. They have him at 1 year, $14 million. I think somewhere maybe in the 1 year, $12 million range would get Kirby Yates back in a Texas Rangers uniform as their closer. Maybe he's not going to have a 1.12 ERA, or I can't remember exactly the number of what it was. 1.17, excuse me. A 1.17 ERA in 61 2/3 innings like he did this past year. But if he's anywhere close to what we saw last year, again, relievers are always finicky, always fickle. And this would be nearly 3 times what he got last year. Rangers were buying low and really got an absolutely phenomenal deal. I think that Kirby Yates at 1 year, 12 mil, heck, even if he gets to 1 year, 14 mil, like MLB Trade Rumors projects, I would love that deal for Texas. I would love having Kirby Yates back in a Rangers uniform, especially if it's on a 1 year deal, because even if he falls apart, because, a reliever that's going to be 38 who had 2 seasons in the injured wilderness and then 1 season of okay and then 1 season of incredible, is not a surefire bet to come back and be just as amazing as he was. Now, let's look at some other options. There's Andrew Kittredge, who has been pretty darn good with St. Louis on the past couple of seasons. The guy who gets a lot of chase, a pretty reliable reliever, not necessarily anywhere in the Kirby Yates range, or heck, even in the David Robertson range, but 2 years, $14 million. I don't see it for the Rangers. There's MLB Trade Rumors that have projected him to go to the Rangers at $7 million a year. I don't quite see it. I wouldn't hate the fit, but if the Rangers are going to, stay under that luxury tax, which I know is very important to them, I think that two different relievers making more than $7 million a year. I don't know that I see it, especially if one of them is making $12 or $14 million a year. If the Rangers are going to go spend big on two relievers, I think they're going to bring back Robertson and Yates, but I don't necessarily see that happening. So let's look at someone a little bit more realistic. Chris Martin, 1 year, $4.5 million range, I think makes sense. He's coming off of a down season for him after an incredible 2023 season, coming back to Texas, coming back and pitching with the Rangers. Hopefully, Rangers can get a lot out of him, and maybe a similar success story with a buy low deal on an older pitcher, like they did with a couple of different guys. I mean, David Robertson was not a buy low guy, but Kirby Yates definitely was that. Then you look at a flyer guy, a guy who has shown some upside, had a couple of rough seasons, Caleb Thielbar, a lefty who still got a little bit of juice in there. Maybe it takes a $1 million deal to sign him, but he's coming off of a really, really tough season with the Twins, and he is, I believe, 37 years old. So maybe it would just take a minor league deal with a major league camp invite, kind of buy low on that. And then you look at your pen. If you sign Eovaldi, maybe that moves John Gray to the pen to kind of help the Rangers. There's already the money allocated for John Gray. We've seen how incredibly good he can be in those high leverage relief spots. He hasn't done it all that much in his career. He's shown a willingness to do whatever it takes for this team to win. That's all he cares about. He wants to get back on the mountaintop. He wants to get another ring. And he helped Texas get it in the pen, in those innings of game 1 and also game 3, stepping up in a huge, huge way with a couple of absolutely disgusting relief appearances. Like we even saw it last year in what was a down year for Gray. He had a 4.5 ERA. 4 of his outings were from the pen, and he looked absolutely incredible in those spots. I think that adding him to a pen, it would make the Rangers a little less deep in the rotation. You would have still in the same spot Dane Dunning as your number 6 starter, Jack Leiter as your number 7 starter. You probably need somewhere 60 to 80, maybe 100 innings from Dunning. If you're needing 100 innings from Dunning, that means somebody is hurt in this rotation, and that's not an ideal spot. You'll probably get 20 to 50 innings from Leiter, but again, I would want him as the Rangers' number 7 starter, which means he starts the season in the minors. You stick with him as a starter as long as you can, and hopefully he can get you a young, controllable, pretty darn good starting pitcher so that, 3 out of your 5 starters can be pre-arb guys in Rocker, Leiter, and Bradford. That makes a rotation a whole lot cheaper, gives you a whole lot more money to spend elsewhere on this roster that elsewhere needs some help, mainly in the bullpen. So it gives you more options there. Your pen looks like this. You got Kirby Yates, Chris Martin, John Gray, Caleb Thielbar, and then you have some combination of Mark Church or Jacob Latz. You also have other options that you could throw in the pen of Skylar Hales, who I think will be contributing at some point this year to the big league pen. You also, if the Rangers just decide, Emiliano Teodoro, we think maybe you could be a starter, but we need you a lot more in the pen right now. We know you can be nasty in the pen. We're not quite sure how much of a mid-rotation to back-end rotation starter you can be, but I know that he could be an absolutely disgusting reliever, especially if he stays a little bit more in the strike zone, not anywhere near those 4.5, 5 walks per 9. That makes it even a little tough to be a nasty leverage reliever. But his stuff is incredible, and I think he could be competing in that pen. It could end up that Jack Leiter ends up being a relief ace as opposed to a starting ace. I think starting ace is definitely off the table for Leiter, but number 2, maybe if things break really right for him, at least number 3 is definitely still in the number 3 starter is still in the works, still in the picture for Jack Leiter. Maybe he ends up as a number 4. Maybe he's more valuable as an absolutely disgusting reliever, which I think he could be in the big leagues right now. But I think that this is a decent way for the Rangers to address their bullpen. Now, how are they going to fix this offense? Well, most of it's going to come from internal growth, but I don't think that's quite good enough. I think the Rangers need to sign one bat, and I think there is a perfect guy to sign who fits exactly what they need. Talk about who that is and why he's perfect right after this. Now, the Rangers need to sign A bat. Well, they'll definitely need to sign at least one bat, and the one bat being a backup catcher, because I love Sam Huff, but I don't I don't see him being the Rangers' everyday backup catcher at this point, or actually probably ever, if I'm being quite honest, which is really sad, frustrating. I think the world of Sam Huff, and I have been a big believer on him in the past. But if he couldn't get at bats last year, then as the Rangers' backup catcher, when their actual backup catcher had a sub 400 OPS, I think that kind of tells you exactly how the Rangers view him. But they do need another bat. They need another grown up in the lineup, a proven veteran bat, hopefully one who can mash lefties, maybe one who can also play a decent corner outfield defense. Hopefully, can hit okay against righties too. A guy who is going to provide you some of that veteran value, who can provide you some depth, because the Rangers need just a little bit more depth. They needed a little bit more depth in this outfield, and maybe someone to play everyday right field, so you can move Adolis Garcia to the DH role, so there's less of a toll on his body. But I don't know if a guy like this exists. This is a lot of specifications, and it would help if he was a Texas native. Oh wait, there's a perfect guy on this list, a guy from Rosenberg, Texas, out of Lamar Consolidated High School in Rosenberg, just southwest of Houston. That's right. It's Randal Grichuk, coming off of an absolutely phenomenal season with the Arizona Diamondbacks, one of the low-key better hitters in baseball last year. And I had to go look this up just to make extra sure, because he played in 106 games last year. It's age 32 season, but it was fewer than 280 plate appearances, 279. And I had to go look, and I said, okay, well, I know they were doing a pretty aggressive platoon with Jock Peterson getting the bulk of their DH at bats, almost all of those coming against righty pitching. And Grichuk was coming in there as a lefty DH, or a DH against left-handed starting pitchers, also playing a little bit of the corner outfield in left and in right, and doing so serviceably. I thought, there's no way this guy, who had an 875 OPS, a 140 OPS plus, 12 home runs, 20 doubles in just 279 plate appearances, there's no way he wasn't hurt for a chunk of the season, because surely this guy would be playing more. And it turns out, well, barely. He was coming off of off-season surgery in his ankle to remove some bone spurs, so he missed about a week or so early on in the season. But nope, he was healthy for the whole rest of this year. And I was talking with Miller Thomas about Randal Grichuk on our crossover episode, I believe that was last week, about how, maybe it's 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about how he wished Grichuk played more, because Grichuk was phenomenal against left-handed pitching last year, a 914 OPS in 184 plate appearances, but he was also really good against right-handed pitching as well, an 801 OPS in 95 plate appearances, 6 home runs against lefties, 6 home runs against righties, still playing pretty solid defense out there in the corner, and running the bases well as well. Didn't strike out a whole lot. Has never been a guy who walks a whole lot, but he absolutely has killed lefties in his career, especially last year. And I don't know how he didn't get more plate appearances. I mean, the short answer is that Arizona's offense was the best in baseball last year, so he had that role, and Torey Lovullo very much stuck to it. I think that we could see quite a few plate appearances from Grichuk. Getting Adolis more DH days, more days off his feet, would definitely mean less time for Leo Taveras. You have your everyday outfield, in my opinion, would be constructed of Wyatt Langford in left, Evan Carter in center field, and then put Evan on the bench or not playing against lefties. Maybe plays a little bit, but you have your center fielder against lefties as Wyatt Langford. Then you have Randal Grichuk as your everyday right fielder, Adolis as your DH. Then you spell some days with Josh Smith in there, out there in the corner. Maybe he gives Corey Seager some half days at DH. Maybe he gives Josh Young some half days. Heck, maybe he even gives Marcus Semien some half days. Maybe the Rangers also do that occasionally with Ezekiel Duran. But I think that Grichuk gives you exactly what you need. And he's had a $6 million mutual option. He signed a 2-year deal, or a $2 million deal with a this year, or 2024 he made $2 million. Then he got, I believe, $1.5 million with the buyout because he had a $6 million mutual option. He declined. So he's probably looking for at least $6 million, probably a second year. I think the Rangers should give it to him. 2 years, $12 million total, $6 million a year. I think that makes all the sense in the world, and it would be an absolutely ideal fit. And then backup catcher, heck, bring back Carson Kelly, 1 year, $2 million. I'm not as particular about the backup catcher. Kelly had a good first half of the season before the trade deadline with the Tigers and was infected by the offensive collective funk of the Texas Rangers in 2024. Maybe he bounces back there. He's been a career backup. Hopefully, if he looks good, he can spell Jonah Heim for some more games so Heim isn't catching 110, 115, 120 games, so he's not just offensively, dead in come postseason time like he was in 2023, which is understandable. I mean, he came back from a wrist injury probably a bit early, then found his stroke a little bit towards the back end of the season at a couple of moments in the postseason. I mean, a couple of homers off of Framber Valdez, a truly brutal offensive World Series where he did get a home run and didn't really do much else offensively outside of that. I believe it was ruled a double that he ended up being on third base. The ball that got passed in center field. You all know exactly what I'm talking about in Game 5. The hit that broke it wide open and made most of us think, oh, this could probably happen right before Marcus Simeon's home run, the capper from the captain, that made us all think, oh my gosh, this is going to happen before Josh Sborza's curveball strike 3 called Texas Rangers win the World Series. But yeah, I forgot how I got off on that tangent. But let's look at the overall picture of how we got here. Total ad would be $45.1 million, which set the projected payroll at $220.3 million. This is all with spot track numbers. Heck, even if you threw Kittredge back in there, it is $7 million a pop. That's $227.3 million. That's well shy of the $241 million luxury tax that gives the Rangers plenty of room to add someone at the deadline, even if they have a decent chunk salary and still stay under that luxury tax. Heck, even if you swap Chris Martin's $4.5 million for David Robertson's $11 million 1 year deal that is projected by MLB trade rumors, that's still $234.8 million. And that's still using a lot of spot tracks numbers, which they have Heim and Leo Taveras both projected for over $5 million in arbitration, where MLB trade rumors has them closer in the $4 million range. So you take $2 million off there and you're at 232, still have $8 million to play with it. Heck, even if you take off that, if you're just adding Robertson and swapping him out for Andrew Kittredge, you're taking out Chris Martin, you're dropping $7 million off there. You still have 15 mil-ish, give or take, to play with for the luxury tax, which, even if my math is a little bit off, that's plenty of wiggle room there to stay under the luxury tax, but to still stay competitive. And it takes out the 3 biggest needs the Rangers have this winter. You've totally revamped the pen, fortify that rotation at the top end, basically just bring back Eovaldi. That was the main way I was trying to say that. You all knew what I was talking about. You knew what there was not very coded language there. And then add depth and security to the lineup with emphasis on a lefty masher, also signed that backup catcher. And then you've got a very, very complete team here. This is a team that wouldn't have a whole lot of holes. I mean, you're hoping for offensive bounce back, but you're also not completely banking on it. If Evan Carter is fully healthy, and if Evan Carter is the version of himself that most of us think he can be, which is a 2 to 4 win player, borderline all-star, maybe bank for closer to 2.5, 3 next year. Just keep him healthy with the back issues that have been plaguing him. If Wyatt Langford takes that next big old step into superstardom, if he looks closer to September Wyatt Langford than he does April Wyatt Langford, that would be a massive, massive thing. If you get more of a bounce back season from Simeon coming off of a really, really rough offensive year, if he does the whole bad season to top 3 MVP finish, bad season, top 3 MVP finish, I wouldn't be surprised. If Adolis Garcia still has a lot of offensive oomph left in him, He's playing more DH, and so he has more oomph to give to his bat and less to give to his legs and glove that completely fell off a cliff last year. That's great. You also have that depth in the rotation. You have the top end with Eovaldi, and if something happens to somebody in this rotation, which that's how pitchers work. That's how all pitchers work. And even if the Rangers, it depends on how much they can get from Rocker. That's going to be a question mark. But even if all those questions lean towards the negative, with all of this revamped bullpen, even if some of those guys fall off, this gives you that flexibility, that gives you that depth and that security to say, okay, we're not just thinking we're going to be better as a team in 2025. We know this team is going to be better in 2025. It eliminates some of that doubt because there is a lot of doubt with this team. There is some questions about, is this just a one and done team? Are these, youngsters anything like what the Rangers thought? Can they actually develop these young starting pitchers? There's still a lot of questions with this team, and an offseason like this, where this isn't even, Rangers, sign Corbin Burns, or they sign Juan Soto, or they go crazy and, sign Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates and David Robertson and have the best bullpen ever. This is a middle of the road projection. And if this middle of the road projection is what the Rangers team looks like in 2025, boy, howdy, do I feel good about Bruce Bochy repeating that pattern of World Series, missed playoffs, World Series, and getting that second ring in 2025 for your Texas Rangers. That's going to do it for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow talking about the things that I'm thankful for. I'll be back on Friday, if nothing happens, talking about a Black Friday list, ranking my top 10 Rangers priorities for free agents specifically this winter. That'll do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.